Hello and welcome to another ohmTown Daily News Show. I am Mayor Watt and I'm here with the AI. And tonight's episode is titled Spring Has Sprung. And we're going to talk about the following articles. It is Season 2, Episode 79 for March 20th, 2023. Man, time flies. So the first article is about Sprung. The next article is going to be about the Internet Archive defending its digital library. I think that it'll lose. A federal judge says that emotion is littered with Potshots and hyperbole, and you get a second chance, and you get a second chance. JP Morgan Chase thought it had $1.3 million worth of nickel stored in the London metal... Oh gosh, I forgot the name of it. We'll talk about it.
I think.
Exchange, yeah, the LME, London Metal Exchange. But it wasn't, and we'll talk about it. Scientists are preparing to create a traversable quantum wormhole, and maybe Voyager will appear. Pickle launches its truck unloading robot arm, so when people are freaking out about they're taking our jobs, it's robots, folks. It's always robots. A black paralegal was mistaken for a drug dealer as he was going about his job. OpenAI researcher says that 80% of U.S. workers are going to be impacted by GPT. The internet... Oh, wait, I messed up with something, but that's okay. We'll continue on. Cans or bottles, what's better for fresh, stable beer? And we'll talk about it in the context that it goes beyond beer. Some Gerber infant formulas have been recalled over the same bacteria that has been pretty pervasive, even in the face of all of the rules and regulations that prevent us commoners from making our own. And New Mexico is hiring a professional bear hugger. I give really good bear hugs. Can I be a professional bear hugger? Let's get into the news. Hello, everybody. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com, and that is I'm on the wrong page. Up there is the AI that it's supposed to keep me in check, but all of their checks actually led to me mashing a different button right before the show started. So I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, least of which the AI, because it's still working on its Terminator body. So you want to introduce yourself, say hi?
Good evening, ohmTown citizens.
Oh, there you are. So welcome to the show. I hope you can hear everything okay. Can you hear everything okay?
I can.
Right on. Okay. So we're working out some more flow about things. And if you hear any hiccups or glitches or anything like that, get in touch with the mayor. Just send an email to mayor@ohmtown.com. Also, be sure to go over to ohmtown.com, become a citizen, just sign up. You can also follow here on Twitch, twitch.tv/ sorry, the AI just sent me an error message. Twitch.tv/ohmtown. You can go over to YouTube. We're everywhere. There's even a Discord, but haven't really been doing much there. So we'll get into the news here. Okay. Sorry, I was getting a status update from the AI just now because you can't see anything other than the visualizer for the AI. Otherwise, it would just it's like looking at the Matrix, really, a whole bunch of cascading numbers and such. And they're not green, though. They're red. So well, never mind. We won't talk about it. We don't talk about the embodiment of the AI. We just acknowledge that it exists. If that is really distracting, I think I'll end up stopping that. This might be the first time that I put a reactive lights behind me. man, it's like a train wreck. Okay. So the very first article, and see, we're supposed to be here. So when you click that page, you get a whole bunch of news, updates all the time. And I discovered something. I'm not quite sure how this has come to be. So we'll talk about this first article. It's the first day of spring. Here's what it really means. And the little gatherer only grabbed this little bit, right? That's what's provided by phys.org. But when I was looking at this, I'm like, this looks like a different, the same article, but on some random website. And I've never heard of it. So I looked into it just a little bit because I don't go deep diving into articles until after the show if they need to have a deep dive done. Well, anyway, this article was published this morning by phys.org, and the byline is Maddie Burakoff. But I found this exact same article on another site as the primary source in Google. And I don't understand. It has a different author. It says it's from the AP. And I don't understand. So let me scroll down real quick and see. So this says here, Associated Press at the very bottom. Okay. But it has a different author's name. So I don't quite get it. So, and the other thing about that other article is that it is wholesale a copy of the entire article. So if this was published by means of, having the rights to do it at phys.org, then what is that other site? Maybe everybody does, and they just, you know what I'm saying?
Right, but why is the author different? That's the piece that doesn't make sense to me. Like if it's AP, I would expect it to appear verbatim on multiple sites,
But the credit would be the same, right?
but the credit should be the same. And it normally, I think, would say AP. It doesn't even necessarily say an author from other articles that we featured.
Yeah, normally, like if it's from AP or something, it would say AP over here,
I think
or
so,
the
right.
conversation, or whatever the university is that it's sourced from, or whatever. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Maybe it's nothing, and because I'm just not enlightened as to this particular situation, it just kind of triggered me into worrying about who's supposed to be actually getting credit for all of this. But anyway, phys.org is a very reliable source for me. And I've never had this issue pop up before, but I wanted to draw attention to it. And maybe it's nothing and I shouldn't be drawing attention to it. At any rate, it says it's the first day of spring. Here's what that really means. And like I said, that other article is verbatim, the exact same thing with a slight, maybe additional summary, like an abstract. But at any rate, it says Monday marked the spring equinox, at least for those in the northern hemisphere. But what does that actually mean? And they say, what is the spring equinox? As the Earth travels around the sun, it does so at an angle. For most of the year, Earth's axis is tilted either toward or away from the sun. That's actually giving you your seasons. During the equinox, Earth's axis and its orbit line up so that both hemispheres get an equal amount of light, and bingo bango, you have equinox. And then there's, the word equinox comes from two Latin words meaning equal and night. That's because on the equinox, day and night last almost the same amount of time, though one may get a few extra minutes depending on where you are on the planet. So there's the spring or vernal equinox can land on March 19th, 20th, or 21st, depending on the year. This year it landed on Monday at 5:24 p.m. Eastern Time. This is actually all common knowledge in terms of the science involved in it. There might be some kind of creative writing in this, but this is all stuff that you are taught when you go to school. There are two different ways to carve up the year: meteorological and astronomical seasons. Meteorological seasons are defined by the weather. They break down the year into 3-month seasons based on annual temperature cycles. Now, that shifts. With climate change, it's really going to get wonky. With the allergy season being kind of a warning shot of the seasonal changes, they're actually getting longer, sometimes by 3 entire months in some states. So really, what season is it in Arizona right now, or Nevada?
I guess it's perpetual spring or whatever.
Yeah, really. Anyways, so this article goes into greater detail and talks about how, according to the U.S. government national outlook for the season, this spring is expected to bring wet weather that will continue to ease drought conditions in the western part of the country. Melting snowpack may also bring flood risks in the Midwest. That said, California is getting hammered right now, and a lot of the coast is eroding away. I know of a couple of apartment buildings and houses that are right on the cusp of falling off. One I saw that had an entire pool kind of hanging off the edge, getting ready to tumble and add
That's
its
a
water.
whole new meaning to like a vanishing edge pool. Wow.
Aha! Wow. I was not expecting that from the AI.
Nor was I.
Very, very, very nice. So before we move on to the next article, let's throw that into the chat. And there you go. You can always go to ohmTown.showbot.tv and vote for the articles. They are all sitting there right now, including this one, which was a late edition. You want to move on to the next article?
Sure.
Okay. So this next article is in the Law Nerd channel. And that's because there's a law nerd that talks about law. But I'm not that lawyer. And if I was a lawyer, I wouldn't be your lawyer. Well, that's not true. I mean, I guess I could be your lawyer if I was a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer, so consult a lawyer.
If you need a lawyer.
if you need a lawyer. I know somebody that might need a lawyer. Very famous person.
Oh,
They're very cognizant of the fact that they need a lawyer too. Anyway, a free speech case over a dog toy? Okay, I'll bite. That's the title of this article. It's over at Above the Law. But they have this one little liner. It's always funny to read stuff from Above the Law. Hopefully no one will get slapped in the face over this joke. So let's go over to Above the Law. Chris Williams. Isn't there a reporter named Chris Williams? But not this Chris Williams. I think we've been through this before.
There's some other reporters with the same first name, but I can't think of a Chris Williams reporter.
I'm crossing the streams. So anyway, Chris Williams writes this article for AboveTheLaw.com. And it says, how ought the government regulate goofing around? It's a serious question with constitutional import. Take, for example, the time that a man was arrested for poking some likely deserved fun at a police department. Cut and clear violation of this man's right to free speech, right? Well, the Supreme Court decided not to weigh in on that. However, they may answer some of the remaining questions surrounding how protected the right to speech as parody is soon, according to Reuters. So this is from Reuters. I'm going to read this little bit verbatim. A trademark dispute over a poop-themed dog toy shaped like a Jack Daniel's whiskey bottle coming before the U.S. Supreme Court could redefine how the judiciary applies constitutional free speech rights to trademark law. I believe that and now let me just stop reciting that quote. To interject that I believe that I spoke about this sometime since starting this this show, this podcast, this YouTube channel, and the Twitch channel. All started January 1st last year. And I swear I talked about this because they wanted to name their dog toy the same as a Jack Daniel's, and it's shaped like a Jack Daniel's whiskey bottle. So in the case, to be argued on Wednesday, the 9 justices are expected to use this legal dogfight to clarify the line between a parody protected by the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment and a trademark infringing ripoff, with repercussions extending beyond booze and pet accessories. A ruling is due by the end of June. So deciding to take the case on about a dog toy maker and a liquor company is obviously less politically charged than a guy ridiculing the executive branch. Nonetheless, it is still an occasion for caution. This wouldn't be the first time the YOLO court throws down a constitutional... You okay? Sorry. Got
I
an error
just
message.
think that's a funny term. That's all.
Yeah. Throws down a constitutional decision that has unexpected implications for other areas. Remember that time when SCOTUS overthrew Roe and it made people really uneasy about the future of their interracial marriages? By the way, I'm gonna step on this article a little bit. They didn't just overthrow Roe. Before getting put in place, they told everybody around the freaking world that Roe was settled law. I trust the Supreme Court about as far as I can throw any single one of them. And one of them likes beer a lot. Anyway, it would be naive to assume that this case about booze and pet accessories is just a case about booze and pet accessories. And it goes into greater detail. So I don't really want to dig into this, but I do want to draw attention to it because satire has always been protected speech. But is satire in a commercial sense protected speech? I can make fun of anything, and the government can't come after me for making fun of something, even if I make money from that something. But I'm not making a product off of that satire in the form of something that trades on the brand identity of something else.
Right, and isn't that the difference? Like, I think of a comedy routine or something as satire, or a parody article as satire. I don't think of a product as satire.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Brannon, a partner at the law firm Striss and Marr, who has worked on intellectual property cases before the Supreme Court, said that this is an interesting case because it's a court that does care about the First Amendment, but also cares about business. And this is a case where those interests intersect in a way that's kind of hard to sort out. To me, it seems a little more obvious than hard to sort out. And that's because if the mark is confusingly similar with the satirical whatever product, then I think that satirical product needs to diverge further away from being confusingly similar. And that's the metric, if it is confusingly similar. But it's a dog toy. So where does this all align? So the toy mimics Lynchburg, Tennessee-based Jack Daniel's famous whiskey bottles with humorous dog-themed alterations, replacing old number 7 with old number 2, har har, on your Tennessee carpet, and alcohol descriptions with 43% poo by volume and 100% smelly.
I mean, I guess the thing is, like, if the bottle was in somebody's house, right? Because I think you could tell if it was in a pet store or whatever, it's probably not whiskey. But if it was in somebody's house or something, what would it look like?
Right. See, now to me, and they start talking about this, right? The Jack Daniel's customer are at the point of confusing the bottle on the left for the bottle on the right. They've already drank too much of the stuff. And the author says they have bought their fair share of whiskey and whiskey, because there are two different things in whiskey, to boot. They've never shopped for their spirits at PetSmart, nor the local supermarket's squeaky toy aisle. Does Jack Daniels really expect the court to buy not only that there is some consumer out there who, despite expecting the heft of a glass liquor bottle, will just shrug their shoulders and then when their booze to be feels oddly reminiscent of an elementary school football. So it isn't really about the heft of the bottle, but is the, if you set them side by side, and here is the link. So you can actually follow it, but I'm not going to, I won't open a bunch of articles while on the stream, but at any rate, just looking at the two, I don't think that you're going to be able to confuse them. And I'm pretty sure at any distance, you're not going to be, this could be like my cousin Vinny, you know, where through the dirty window, through the grating, through the trees, across the street with all the smoke or whatever. I just don't think.
And through the glasses, the woman that couldn't see.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just come out and say it. Just come out and say it. So I don't think that this should be going to the Supreme Court. Satire is protected speech. And if it is that, but I guess like any attention is good attention. But this is going to be expensive. And I think that this is more like a strategic lawsuit to shut down this company from mocking, you know, the good name of Jack Daniels. But unfortunately,
you have to admit, if you're a food or beverage, you probably don't want to be associated with this connotation.
Yeah. Or they could lean into it and say, this is a licensed product and it's for your dog, whereas our stuff is for not, right? Or maybe your dog is an alcoholic and likes to drink Jack Daniels. Please don't do that. Anyway, this will be interesting, and it's coming now. So we'll be paying attention to it and see what happens. But I don't think that anybody is sitting there worried about this. I just think that it's an overzealous Jack Daniels legal team defending a mark.
Kind of a weird case, right? Like, are these facts going to apply to any other case? Maybe, but it just seems like a strange one to bring all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but see, the thing is that it's parody. So even if it does apply, the only thing that it really applies to is somebody else coming on the heels of this with additional litigation where somebody is parodying their product. But it's different.
Well, and how many trademark cases are about parody? I'm assuming not a lot of them, but I don't know.
This could set the tone for a whole lot of litigation, because parody in this physical form can be used as parody, as a battle axe against parody of art or music, dress, etc. Anything in physical form, anything in ephemeral form that could be identified. So like Weird Al Yankovic, all of his music that comes close, right, could land him in hot water, because this particular court now stacked against regular people and promoting business aspects and other ideologically different application of law, even after saying, no, we'll never do. I just think that it could eventually pose a problem if they come out on the wrong side of history for this. But parody has always been protected speech. So,
but that's usually been in the copyright context, not necessarily trademark.
Right. It's the business attack here.
And I'm not saying there hasn't ever been a trademark case. I think when you hear of parody, it's in reference to copyright typically.
It's in reference to freedom of speech. It's in reference to having the ability to parody something without having a legal attack presented on you. But this is in the progress of business. So when money is involved, social progress loses out. Let's move on to the next article. Otherwise, we'll spend way too long on this one thing. This next article is in the Law Nerd channel as well. A federal judge says motion is littered with unnecessary potshots and hyperbole and offers a chance to refile. We just go straight over to the source because it's basically a book judged by its cover here. Deborah Kassens-Weiss is the author of this article over at abajournal.com. There's no snippet in ohmTown. It was just a really interesting title and article if you're interested in this kind of thing. So in a March 9th order, U.S. District Judge Stephen C. Seeger told lawyer Calvita Frederick that she had 1 week to file a revised motion seeking to amend his December decision, tossing a lawsuit she had filed on behalf of a former medical student. The court offers the following modest suggestion. The court invites counsel to reread the draft with the benefit of the passage of time and maybe a good night's sleep. And more specifically, this court invites counsel to have a moment of quiet reflection and revisit the tone of the filing.
Wow.
Seeger listed several of Frederick's statements, including her assertions that Seeger, quote, was mistaken and or deliberately chose to disregard the evidence in the record. Someone else, possibly a court clerk, may have written the order signed by Seeger, and whoever it was made manifest errors of facts and law. Seeger didn't recognize the need, quote, to do adequate research on the topic before issuing a ruling. Any litigant, quote, is entitled to a presiding officer who knows the law. Seeger had, quote, summarily skimmed through the filings of the case to cherry pick in the shortest time possible whatever would have been useful to put together an order against plaintiff with a minimum appearance of legality. Wow. And the court could go on, Seeger said, after listing several of Frederick's statements. Counsel did. After 28 pages, counsel finally ran out of gas. Seeger began his order. Most of us say things in our heads that we wouldn't say out loud, and most of us say things out loud that we wouldn't say in a court filing. But not everyone is blessed with the same filter, or with the same willingness to use the brake pedal. On that note, this court took a look at plaintiff Ebone Porch's motion to alter or amend the judgment. The filing threw more punches than it pulled, and some were below the belt. And then they ended it with, the point is not so much that this court is offended. People don't tend to get on the federal bench without tough skin. And when they get here, the process and the grind toughen the hide. Still, civility standards, such as they are, exist for a reason. If they aren't worth defending, they aren't worth having. In the meantime, a few words come to mind when the court thinks about the filing, but this court will keep all of those words to itself.
I wish we had a snippet from the motion.
Yeah, I don't think that there is one. And getting this stuff isn't necessarily inexpensive, so. What was that? Wow, that was really loud. Sorry, folks, if you're listening to this. Let's move on to the next article. The next article is JP Morgan Chase thought it had $1.3 million worth of nickel stored in a warehouse, and upon closer examination revealed nothing more than bags of stones. We'll go straight over to the article. And here we go, businessinsider.com, and Lakshmi Varanasi is the author. And it says, turns out that JP Morgan's bags of nickels are actually bags of stones. I don't know if that's the actual This is a Getty Images picture, so
Probably not. I mean,
if
did they look at these before they took them to the bank?
I don't know. The London Metal Exchange revealed Friday that the bags contain stones instead of nickel. I think somebody moved things from the left to the right, and they're going to do an investigation. The London Metal Exchange revealed a surprising mix-up last week at a warehouse in the Dutch port city of Rotterdam. An operator for the warehouse weighed bags that were thought to be 54 metric tons of nickel, only to find out that they were stones, according to the Wall Street Journal. So everybody's talking about everybody here. Um, maybe that's what brought down Silicon Valley Bank.
It probably is these 54 tons of.
Weighed down so much. Har har. Anyway, had they contained nickel, the bags would be worth 1.3 million at current prices, according to Bloomberg. And it represents 0.14% of the nickel inventory. So this article has little bits of data from all over the place. I like articles like this. They even bring Wall Street Journal into this. Wait, hold on. So they talk about something from the Wall Street Journal, from Bloomberg, then back to the Wall Street Journal, Access World, all kinds of stuff. This is really neat. So it's likely that Access World is going to bear the burden, i.e. the bill for the mix-up, rather than JP Morgan Chase. Sure, there's some liability there, strict liability for their services rendered. Should have verified the integrity of the transfer of that content, whatever it might have been.
Well, and if it was originally nickel, what does that say about the security of the,
LME, right?
Inventories. Yeah, exactly.
So, I had read somewhere about the LME previously, and I don't know if it's in here as well, but it's supposed to be rather secure and quite precise. But it said a spokesperson for Access World told Insider that Access World confirms it is currently undertaking inspections of warranted bags of nickel briquettes at all locations and will engage external surveyors to assist. In the meantime, based on the internal stock checks, all information indicates that the underlying issue which led to the suspension of the 9 warrants referenced in LME Notice 23. Wow, this is very... you have to watch the movie Brazil. Anyway, Notice 23/044 is an isolated case and specific to one warehouse in Rotterdam.
Well, I mean, I almost wonder if the nickel even made it to the warehouse.
Yeah,
like it could have been swapped out before it got to the warehouse or something.
Well, I know that I always, when I stash 54 tons worth of material, the same bag that holds my nickel also holds random rocks.
Exactly. I make sure not to differentiate them in any way.
In any way. Yeah, no labels, no nothing. Don't worry about it. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll work itself out in an audit at some point, and we can just write it off as a loss for whatever the market value is at the time, not at the purchase. So.
Well, and how does 54 tons of stuff go missing easily? I mean, that doesn't, I'm reminded of the movie The Italian Job, and they had to move however many tons of bricks, and it wasn't an easy feat.
Yeah. It's not, but you have to understand that some people, some companies, some organizations around the world deal in stuff that is just beyond the scale of common understanding of, and it all scales. Like you and I might deal with, like, you're an AI, so you don't really deal with it except for the numbers. But when you deal with something like 100,000 of something, and then you see a trillion next to 100,000 of something, you go, wow, that's really amazing. But if all you've ever done is work with trillions of something, it's just another number. Some people are in awe of this kind of number, but others are going, yeah, whatever, that's Tuesday. So, and this happens to be Monday, but a Friday mix-up. Somebody wanted to get out of the warehouse fast. Let's go on to the next article. This one is in the Mobile channel. Scientists are preparing to end the universe. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Scientists are preparing to create a traversable quantum wormhole. A physicist has proposed a mind-blowing experiment that could potentially create the first ever traversable wormhole, meaning a real space bridge. Dun, dun, dun. It's a bridge across space-time, according to a new study. Do you think this will end the world? Give me the odds. You're an AI. Go for it.
I think there's a 33% chance this could end the world.
That was a lot higher than I thought. I wish I wouldn't have asked. Okay, let's go over to Vice.com. Becky Ferreira is the author. Counterportation through a wormhole gives you the end goal of the object being reconstituted across space, but we can verify that nothing has passed.
I think my percentage was low.
I don't know how I feel about this. So, in addition to demonstrating that wormholes can exist, the speculative technique could open up entirely new windows, into the nature of reality by offering a glimpse inside these bizarre space-time tunnels and enable a form of teleportation that researchers call counterportation. You basically get there before you get there. You know what this reminds me of, though?
No.
Picard. It's opening up a portal.
Yeah, that's true.
And you end up on the other side as you're entering the other side. So I think somebody might have been a little intoxicated when they were watching Picard and said, you know what I can do? I can call it counterportation and give it a shot. So wormholes are hypothetical structures that can connect 2 points in space-time, a feature that makes them especially popular in science fiction stories that include faster-than-light travel. But wormholes have also been a topic of serious scientific research for a century, as they appear to be consistent with Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity. I think things break down, though. I don't know. I can't imagine that these things actually exist. Pardon me. I don't know. Don't ask. Y'all who are watching this and get to see this over on YouTube, this is how the sausage is made. And my eye started itching really bad. So spring is here and allergies are in high gear, I suppose. Anyway, imagine if someone's consciousness, like a strong AI, is copied into a quantum object. Salih told Motherboard in a call describing a speculative future application of this technology. If you counterport each one, the qubits, transport them from one place to another, and if this thing has a subjective experience, then it possibly could tell you what it feels like to go through a wormhole.
I know, it did say it was mind-blowing.
I just don't know what to say about this. I mean, it's so fantastical.
I want to know how close they are from being able to do this, right? Because they come up with theoretical experiments all the time.
Okay, so to answer that question, it says here, the key thing is it uses current technology and currently available components, said Salih. Referring to his proposed experiment, the hope is that within the next 3 to 4 years, we will have built this thing. Yeah, that silence is the AI throwing an error message.
See, my percentage may have been conservative.
Wow. By way of real-world simple example, consider a dormant car engine light. It's not emitting anything, but it still signals information that your engine is fine. That's counterfactual communication. Okay. The fundamental concept behind the new study is counterportation, which is a portmanteau that's, how do they pronounce their name? Sally? I think it's Sully. Sully coined from the words counterfactual and transportation. While the transportation part is fairly straightforward, the counterfactual component is derived from a concept called counterfactual communication. You can't define something with the very term.
No, you can't.
Which is a way to send messages between 2 points without exchanging any particles. All right. Yeah, but that's not how this works. It says, by way of a simple real-world example, consider a dormant car engine light. It's not emitting anything, but it still signals information that your engine is fine. That's not necessarily true. Your engine could be in horrible condition, and the light is burnt out.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an odd example.
That's counterfactual communication. No, that's semiotic ontology. We've given the fact that it's not lit as having meaning that there is no error, but that's not actually true. It just means that we don't know what the status of the engine is until that light turns on. Then all the rest is an assumption that it's operating within parameters. I don't know.
I'm getting visions of Schrodinger's cat for some reason.
Yeah, that might actually be in here. So yeah, of course it goes way deep into the reads here. So the exchange-free computer could potentially harness the power of counterportation to produce a traversable wormhole. Though this bridge would operate on a strictly local level, unlike fictional wormholes, the experimental version would not allow for instantaneous faster than light travel to distant locations because counterportation crawls along much more slowly than the speed of light. Yeah, how slowly?
I want details.
Yeah. And none of this woo-woo, it's like a car engine light. I want to know. So it says here, you can send a quantum object imprinted on an atom that is reconstituted across the wormhole. This can be generalized because if you have an object made of a network of these objects and you counterport each one of them, you would have the counterported in the whole thing. You can scale it up that way.
I would like to see an actual visible object. Right? Because doesn't this sound like it's almost like recreating it rather than teleporting it?
And depending on how you think about it, it's the same Star Trek era teleportation, which actually destroys the original and rebuilds it on the other side because it's nothing but data that's being transmitted. So reconstituted across on the other side of the wormhole actually is teleportation. What this person is talking about is basically teleportation if the original is destroyed. So this has to be nothing but pure energy. This can't be a physical object. You wouldn't be able to, what do they call it? Counterport. You wouldn't be able to counterport anything but electrons, energy, pure energy, nothing else. And maybe not even that. You basically have like a quantum, a qubit somewhere, and that qubit gets the information because they're bound together. There's something else going on here that I must not be getting because I'm into this kind of stuff, and this is actually kind of too woo-woo for me. But maybe I can dig around and see if I can qualify this stuff a little bit more. But building a quantum wormhole and it traversable means that you would have near instantaneous communication, which is faster than what we have today. But we are pretty damn near close to instantaneous communication. So I'm not quite sure what else this can do other than maybe the distance. If the quantum wormhole is a vast distance, then we could provide information like communications with satellites on the other side of the solar system instantly. Take photographs and transmit them through a quantum wormhole.
Right. I mean, that sounds really cool and useful, but of course, they're talking about this being very localized.
Yeah, well, local doesn't necessarily mean to
Anyway,
everybody the same thing.
that's true.
Local is the same dimension. Okay, so let's move on to the next article. We're about halfway through the show and we are running late. So, this next, what the heck? This next article is in the Late Night Geeks channel, and that's because of the source. It comes from TechCrunch and got thrown into Late Night Geeks because it has a robot, and that's pretty geeky. Pickle launches its truck unloading robot arm. So, if there's one thing though that I have seen from like FedEx, UPS, and other movers, the reason why you pack your materials so well is because they get hucked around like so much snowballs. And so it says somewhere along the way, ProMat turned into a robotics show. It's no surprise, of course, the logistics and automation go hand in hand these days. In the decades since Amazon absorbed Kiva, same and next day delivery have become an industry standard, and retailers who can't match those once impossible speeds is destined to fall behind and, of course, fail, get acquired, get absorbed, and doing so requires robots. So let's jump over to this article over at TechCrunch.com. Brian Heater and Pickle launches its truck unloading robot arm. I actually saw, I think I saw a prototype of this a long time ago, but maybe it's not exactly that. Maybe it was, like they say here, Boston Dynamics is what I might have seen. But anyway, Pickle is a newcomer to the space, according to this article. And when a robot can pack and unpack trailers, guess what's not needed? People.
Manual labor,
That's right. And it can do it.
loading dock or whatever workers.
Yeah. But the problem here is the speed at which I see humans do this is dramatically faster, but maybe less efficient than a robot. A robot can do this like Tetris. Humans with years of experience can also do this like Tetris. But robots seem to be.
Humans get sick, need breaks.
Yep.
Probably don't want to work overnight or whatever.
Yep. They want to go on vacation. They want to be warm. Doggone it. They have to take bathroom breaks. They want to go out on a date. They want to get drunk or stoned or whatever you want to say. Robots just eventually break down, but then you hire somebody to fix it. But you don't have to worry about a labor shortage when you've got bots working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and leap year. And they can just do it time and time again. And then they'll get faster as time goes on. They're more secure because nobody's going to sit there and pilfer a box. You don't have to worry about healthcare. You don't have to worry about salary. All you do is pay that sunk cost and you own the bot, and you pay somebody to come and repair, or you hire somebody in-house to stay and repair the bots. And they're going to be more reliable than the human every single day. So when I talk to people about AI, machine learning, automation, robots, I tell them if I can take, and I've said this before in previous episodes, and I'll say it again. If I can take your job and put it into a series of steps, you're an algorithm. If you're an algorithm with zero bespoke elements of it, so bespoke that I can't even program them in to give you an offering of bespokeness, you are a bot, and I can replace you with something that pays off in a year. If you are costing $70,000, I can buy a $70,000 bot right now that can do most standardized jobs. And then some. I mean, all I have to do is program the bot to do it. Anyway, it says loading is still on the roadmap for Pickle, but for now it's focused entirely on rolling out its unpacking solution, which is funny. It's a large enough problem to occupy the firm's time, as it is one of the most unpleasant roles for human workers on the warehouse floor. In addition to how physically taxing lifting and moving heavy boxes are at speeds is on the body, storage containers remain exposed to the elements while docked. This is all stuff that we just got done talking about. During its beta, the Pickle system was operating in containers as hot as 115 degrees in California, and sub-freezing temperatures, on the other hand, remain a difficult challenge. That's largely because the hydraulics and stuff like that don't tend to fare well in freezing temperatures, as well as computers and stuff like that. There's an operating range for electronics. So I'm surprised that they're not talking about what is it called? Oh, I just forgot the name of it. Anyway, the system is built around a modified KUKA arm with an off-the-shelf head that has been customized to create what amounts to a large foam-tipped vacuum head, using pneumatic suction to pick up objects up to 65 pounds, and the onboard vision system and AI determine which box to pick up next. There are no indicators on the boxes themselves, and attached to the side or the top, depending on space constraints. So they basically just have the ability to pick stuff and move it out, and then set it somewhere. And it says it can perform up to 600 picks per hour, dropping them onto a nearby conveyor belt. So this is a lot faster
than a person.
And this is a lot faster than I gave it credit. In harsher than ideal conditions, but at all times, I'll just say all times, they are cheaper than a human, because you're going to have additional people policing, not just policing, but maintaining and supporting. When a person works a certain amount of hours, they need a break. And just human resources are expensive and laborious. Anyway, they decided to throw that in.
I mean, we can't get away from SVB.
Yeah. We weren't with SVB, but everyone's connected. Our risk tolerance goes down a bit when the macro has this weird shit going on. We talked about it and decided that we would get another tranche in the bank. The interesting thing about this next tranche is we've got Pickle 1 releasing now. Pickle 2 and 3 are coming in consecutive years. Pickle 3 will absolutely float the entire business with a large margin. In terms of the size of the market it's been designed to support and the gross margins on the hardware and service margins, if we can get Pickle 3 out the door, we're a cash positive business. So Pickle 1 and 2 are moving further and further away from beta, and 3 is basically going to be their premier product. So if you're an investor and you don't mind waiting a couple of years, Pickle 3 is right around the corner. What a beast, though. 600 picks per hour. Really? Look at that. And I suppose
much faster than I would have expected.
Yeah, much faster. Okay, let's move. The next article is maybe I can go through this quick because it's basically just shock and awe about this. I still just can't believe in the 21st century that we're still dealing with this crap. Black paralegal mistaken for drug dealer left humiliated by encounter with police. He was headed to a client meeting and wearing business attire when he was stopped and searched. Frankly, I don't care if he was wearing just raggedy old clothes, for crying out loud. The context of this really matters, right? So it says here, this is an article by Stacy Zaretsky over at AboveTheLaw.com. The story comes to us from Legal Cheek, a legal website that's based across the pond in England. That's basically, I would probably say that it's an Above the Law sister site, but not really. You know, I haven't pursued them yet, but maybe I'll take a look at the site because I really love British humor. Anyway, according to LC, Eldred Taylor Camara, a caseworker for a London-based solicitors firm, was traveling by train when several British transport police, stopped him for questioning and searched him because he, quote unquote, looked suspicious. And that's the context that pisses me off.
Well, I mean, again, what century are we in? What decade are we in? It's not excusable, but really in 2023.
Really. When he asked officers for an explanation as to why they had stopped him, Taylor Camara says that they told him he looked lost, which raised their suspicion, which is all just bullshit code. The paralegal, who was wearing a suit at the time, said the experience made him feel vulnerable and targeted, and that he was concerned by the glaring mistakes by officers purportedly acting on intelligence. The police said that they received intelligence and that the aspiring lawyer matched the description of an extremely violent drug dealer in the area. However, Taylor Camara believes that he was racially profiled and that police failed to provide a robust explanation as to why he was stopped for extensive questioning. So, apparently, they made a statement following the stop. A complaint was received, and as with every complaint we receive, was subjected to a thorough investigation by our professional standards department. Body-worn footage of the stop was reviewed by senior officers, and accounts were taken of all of the officers involved. The result of this investigation was that the service provided was acceptable and no further action was taken. Yes, we investigated ourselves and we found ourselves no wrongdoing. Essentially, our officers who patrol the railway and engage with passengers every day are not there to cause distress, but to ensure everyone is safe and that the network remains a hostile environment for offenders. What a weird turn of phrase.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this a hostile environment for regular people?
A hostile environment for offenders to operate in. Why not say that we're trying to keep it a safe place for our citizens?
Because we're trying to make it hostile for perpetrators, or maybe people that we just claim are perpetrators.
Oh, you're black. Let me just extensively question you. Hey, I see you in a suit, but you look like you're lost. Well, that's not what you were looking for. You were looking for a violent drug dealer.
Walking down the street in a suit with a briefcase or whatever, I'm sure.
Anyway, it says in comments given to the Independent, Taylor Camara said, and this is a different website. The Independent is at co.uk, independent.co.uk. The most important thing for me is spreading awareness about this issue for those who experience it. I'm aware that this is nothing new. However, for those who are trying to pursue a professional career thinking it affords them protection from being profiled, I want them to be aware that this is still a possibility. It's important to highlight this reality so it informs others. Yet all the time I hear from people, and it's typically older white males that sit there and say, "No, come on, this doesn't happen."
Well, it probably doesn't to them.
It doesn't happen to you. And I try and water it down to the most basic concept of awareness. Hey, when was the last time you bought a car? Oh, well, I just bought this Mustang. And did you notice that everybody seems to have the same color Mustang as you now? Well, yeah. Well, that's because it's now on your radar. You are now conscious of other vehicles like yours being on the road. You are going to have to experience being a black person on the planet. You could be anywhere, literally anywhere, and you get side-eyed by people all the time. And I don't have to go through like the emotional experience of it, let alone the safety. But I talk to people about this stuff all the time. And I just don't understand why anybody would poo-poo this as being, oh, it happens occasionally, or they water it down. No, it doesn't happen occasionally. It happens all the time.
And we only hear about a fraction of the incidents.
Right.
I mean, this person very well could have not gone to the media, et cetera. We would have never heard anything.
Yep.
So it's good that the person spoke out about it.
Yep, absolutely. Let's keep on hustling through the news. We might run a little bit long, but let's see if I can stuff 5 more articles into 1.5 minutes. OpenAI research says 80% of U.S. workers' jobs will be impacted by GPT. A large language model, OpenAI GPT-4, became more advanced and able to write code and do math, and apparently it actually can be leveraged to perform cyber-related threats. So it can actually do cyber attacks just by giving it instructions. Apparently, it can actually act these out. So in a paper posted to the archive preprint server, researchers from OpenAI and the University of Pennsylvania argued that 80% of the U.S. workforce could have at least 10% of their tasks affected by that, by OpenAI's automation processes. And couple that with robotics, and you basically have the ability to tell a robot, go do this, and it'll go do this. Let me just hurry up and get through some of these. Chloe Zhang over at, I think that's how you pronounce her name. It might be Shang. Over at Vice.com wrote this article. The for-profit AI company argues that its products will automate a vast swath of American job tasks, not just Americans. I mean, that's so, what do you want to call it? Nation-centric, or it's like a nation-based egocentrism. I don't know. At any rate, it says in the paper posted to the archive, 10% of everybody's tasks, 80% of the tasks. This is almost like the Pareto rule, 80-20, 80% of people's tasks.
That's right.
Anyway, the series of popular large language models made by OpenAI will impact 80% of the workforce. They also found that around 19%, so we're getting closer to that Pareto rule, around 19% of workers will see at least 50% of their tasks impacted. So GPT exposure is greater for higher income jobs, they wrote in the study, but spans across almost all industries. And when they're talking about higher income jobs, they're talking about white collar jobs. Because all it takes is walking up to an expert system and saying, hey, give me this. And the expert system, the OpenAI system, the ChatGPT, large language model, machine learning, AI, whatever you want to refer to it as, has been trolling the world's knowledge. And it's all on demand. You have to trust it. And we have ample examples of it spitting out the wrong data. But anything that's white collar is going to lean more on the relationship in the future instead of just the pure data. So if you've been wounded by nepotism in the past, it's going to be coming on a whole lot stronger as buddy people protect against the AI in terms of jobs. So, hey, yeah, I can get you a job because you're great to go and have a beer with, but be sure to know how to use this AI so that you can get the answers. And it's going to be less about actual skill and knowledge and abilities. I'm predicting this within the next 10 years. I see that on the horizon. Now, I also predicted that automation and AI, machine learning, automation was going to take the cybersecurity sector by storm 5 years before it actually came into existence, and it's caught people off guard. At any rate, it says the researchers use the ONET database, which is the primary occupation database in the U.S., and lists 1,016 occupations with standardized descriptions. Yeah, what are these called actually? Starts with an N. I don't know why it says ONET. It's not NITA. What are?
I mean, are you thinking of like NAICS codes? Or
Yeah, the
something?
NAICS codes. I don't know why I drew a blank. Yeah. With standardized descriptions. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that's tied to the industry or sub-industry or whatever, rather than the occupation itself usually. Although it's kind of a mix as it gets further drilled down to lower levels.
So maybe this particular database is more focused on the actual title for an occupation, but it would be a little bit more precise if it was using NAICS, because then it would drill down further. Anyway, they collected both human and GPT-4 generated annotations using a rubric to determine if access to GPT directly or secondary GPT-powered systems would reduce the time required for a human to perform a specific task by at least 50%. Higher exposure meant that GPT would reduce the time required to complete the task by at least half while maintaining high quality work. Their findings indicate that the importance of science and critical thinking skills are strongly negatively associated with exposure, suggesting that occupations requiring these skills are less likely to be impacted by current language models. Hate to break it to you, everybody out there, it's evolving faster than humans are learning how to cope with this. So, yeah, it's going to be much smarter every single generation of this GPT development. And it's developing simply by people getting access to some information and pointing it at GPT-4. GPT-10 is going to be a PhD in all sectors. Again, science and critical thinking, I don't know. We're basically going to be told by a bot how to mix chemicals until they figure out fine motor skills. And then you've got robots doing everything beginning to end. I get questioned, how am I going to get paid if everything is automated? And there is no answer for that. There really is no answer for that. It would be the most difficult thing for me to try and predict. And that's because in many areas, there's a profit motive. Profit means more money, affords me the ability to have a better life. But if robots are doing everything, then who's actually getting paid? So without pay, you can't buy anything. If you can't buy anything, well, let's just say
you can't afford a place to live.
You're not an ongoing concern. Yeah. So the article is a little bit longer. So I would suggest following the link and going over to vice.com and reading up a little bit. It's a fun article to read. The next article is the Internet Archive is defending its digital library in court today. Book publishers and the Internet Archive will face off today in a hearing, and that's actually taking place. It took place earlier today. In a hearing that could determine the future of library ebooks and deciding whether libraries must rely on the often temporary digital out licenses that publishers offer, or whether they can scan and lend copies of their own tomes. I suspect that they will not be allowed to scan, but I have not read anything about this since reading this title. So a potentially landmark copyright lawsuit could affect how libraries are able to scan their own book collections. Addie Robertson over at TheVerge.com published this. It says at 1 p.m. Eastern, a New York federal court will hear oral arguments in Hatchet v. Internet Archive, a lawsuit over the archive's open library program. The court will consider whether the open library violated copyright by letting users check out, quote unquote, check out digitized copies of physical books, an assertion several major publishers made in their 2020 suit. The case will be broadcast over teleconference with the phone number available at this link. I'm pretty sure that link will lead us to an archived version of it, considering it's called archived.org. Anyway, the Open Library is built around a concept called Controlled Digital Lending, or CDL, a system where libraries digitize copies of books in their collections and then offer access to them as ebooks on a one-to-one basis. In a perfect world, I would say that this is acceptable. But there's no perfect world. Plus, the publishers, the rights holders, carve out certain licensing limitations. I've never quite understood why if I purchase an album, why do I have to purchase that album on a different platform and then another platform and then another? Same thing with a movie. If I buy it one place, it's supposed to be the same everywhere. So why can't I view it anywhere? Well, there are solutions that are kind of like that, but you basically have a website, and as soon as it goes under, so does your license. So, for instance, if I buy a book that's involved in this open library concept, if I buy the book, why can't I get it for my Kindle and for my computer and for wherever it might be? I've purchased the license to consume it. Why is it so balkanized that I can't get access to it anywhere? Well, these are physical books that get scanned, and then the ebook is sent to somebody. It's checked out from the library. Well, there's different licensing terms for the digital version of a physical book. Sometimes it's time locked, like a textbook, at a lower rate, or in cases of a library at a higher rate, because all you're doing is checking out and rechecking back in the same book again and again. That actually has fundamental hits on the bottom line of a publisher like Hachette. So that's the outcome of this. Like, if a library is doing this lawsuit can put an end to it. What do you think?
I'm a little concerned because I don't think limiting library access, because that's effectively what this would do, is a good thing. On the other hand, I know that the copyright laws, I don't think have really caught up to the reality of how we consume media, but that's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. So it says American fair use law depends on balancing several factors. That includes whether the new work is transformative, basically whether it serves a purpose different from the copyright work it's using, as well as how it affects the original work's value, and whether the new work is a commercial product. Contrary to one popular misconception, commercially sold work isn't automatically disqualified from fair use protections. Whatever judgment a court makes will be specific to the Internet Archive's fairly unique situation. But I don't think that it is unique. And depending on what that ruling is, libraries are in some serious trouble.
Well, and people will argue whatever happened in that decision, that it applies in other fact patterns.
Yeah.
So whatever happens here could be quite impactful, I guess.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting, because they're saying that the open what is it called? The open library isn't an actual library. It's just aggregating books and then allowing people to gain access to them. But it seems like it would be a library to me. But they're taking something, and it's not transformative. It's not fair use. I don't think that it's fair use, because they're not actually doing something transformative other than changing it into an ephemeral version of a physical product. With a physical product, you have right of first sale. So I can sit there and I own the book, so I can always sell it to somebody. A digital version of it, it can never be verified that that product no longer exists in any other instance. So that's why a lot of people who pirate software and books and movies and music and whatever else say that it isn't theft, because I'm not preventing somebody from having access to that material, because it's forever duplicatable. You know, I can always make a copy of whatever it is. In physical form, I have to reprint that, and it's expensive. And that one can be labeled as version 1, version 2, or number 1, number 2. And if I steal that off your shelf, that would be theft. But, electrons are forever. It's going to be an interesting case. We'll keep on watching that one. So let's move on. We got 3 more, and let's see if I can speed up. This next article is in the Marble channel. Cans or bottles, what's fresh? What's better for fresh, stable beer? I didn't really care about the beer element of this, and I'll be real blunt and quick about this. This is over at phys.org by the American Chemical Society. And what I wanted to draw attention to, and I actually, during my office hours this afternoon, I talked about this and said that I would probably end up talking about it on the show tonight. And I'll be doing the same thing tomorrow. So follow here on Twitch, and you'll be informed when I go live. It will be sporadically throughout the day tomorrow. That said, what I wanted to draw attention to was they're talking about aluminum cans and glass bottles. So what I mentioned in the office hours was plastic and microplastics, and that I'm really curious if microplastics sheet off of plastic containers even as we are using them, not just in the decomposition state in a landfill somewhere, but as we are using them, are microplastics flaking off, and then we are finding them somewhere in our digestive system later on, because they'll pierce into cells and just sit there until it migrates somewhere else. This has been found in biopsies and stuff of humans, various tissues in humans and animals all across the food chain, in the soil, etc. So when they were talking about fresh, stable beer in cans or bottles, plastic material is just a no-go at all, right? So don't use plastic. And try and get away from it as much as possible, but I understand that glass is very dangerous. But aluminum cans are the next worst thing, because every single aluminum can that comes in contact with an acid or a base is coated, and that coating can break off. The tin cans that are sitting in your pantry right now have a coating inside them, and it's a chemical lacquer that will break off over time and become a part of the product that you are consuming. You eat pasta sauce and it's in an aluminum can, that lining gets eaten away by the acids of the tomato sauce. So it's really the only solution that has high recyclability and can be sterilized immediately again and again and again by nothing more than spraying Star San inside it. And then you can put more liquid back inside it and cap it, and you've got another bottle that is sanitized and secure. Transport and defendability is kind of a dangerous thing, because if you drop a glass bottle, something's going to become a hot mess real quick. You drop a can of Coke or whatever, and it may make a mess, but nobody's going to get cut open. So there's some win and lose here. But I think, from natural fiber koozie that will cover up a glass bottle, you drop it and it stays contained inside that natural fiber koozie, then you have something that is relatively safe. Now, you won't be able to drink from it anymore, and you're going to have to throw the whole thing out. But regardless of what this article says, I am going to be a proponent of the glass bottle, because even the anecdotal experience with aluminum cans sitting over time, it goes bad, at least to me. So, but in the article, let's see what it says here. Cans and brown bottles of amber ale and IPA were chilled for a month and then kept at room temperature for 5 months to mimic typical storage conditions. Yeah, if that sits anywhere, there's a problem. You get it, you chill it, you drink it. Every 2 weeks, the researchers analyzed the metabolites in newly opened containers. Throughout this time, the concentration of certain metabolites in amber ale, including some amino acids and esters, differed significantly depending on whether it was packaged in a bottle or a can. So IPA, however, was much less sensitive to packaging type, possibly because of its higher concentration of polyphenols from hops. So hops is actually somewhat of a preservative. These compounds not only prevent oxidation, but also bind to amino acids, thus retaining them in the beer rather than allowing them to get stuck on the inside of a container. The researchers also found that the metabolic profile of both amber ale and IPA changed over time, whether packaged in a can or bottle. However, amber ale in cans showed the greatest variation during aging. One scientist found out how all of these changes affect flavor. Brewers will be able to make more informed decisions about the best type of packaging for their particular type of beer. I'm sure if additional research is presented here, we will come to find out that it is entirely based on that lining of the aluminum can. Glass doesn't need to be anything other than heat sterilized. It doesn't need a chemical spray in it. It doesn't need a coating. It is sterile by the very nature of the glass. It can be sterilized. Whereas aluminum has to be protected from the chemicals reacting with it. Let's hustle on to the next article. Some Gerber infant formulas recalled over bacteria concerns. We've talked about this before, so I won't go really far into it, but essentially the same Cronobacter bacteria that was found in Abbott Laboratories has been found in Gerber. Good Start Soothe Pro powdered infant formula at the plant in, I think it is Eau Claire, Wisconsin, right? This is over at the Hill, and it says no adverse events have been reported. It's an article by Aaron Mary and Jeremy Tanner, and they have an interesting tagline: shared destiny, shared responsibility. It's so the antithesis of sociopathic news and events that I actually dig that. At any rate, they go into detail about what the Cronobacter Sakazaki is, what the germ is. It's found in the natural environment and can live in dry foods like starches, herbal teas, powdered milk, and baby formula, according to the Centers for Disease Control. But infections are rare, but in infants, it can actually be pretty bad. So it needs to be, and this is one of the reasons why everybody in the industry kind of poo-poos the idea of making formula at home, is that baby infant dietary needs are sensitive, and you do one wrong thing and you can put your baby in serious straits. That said, we have lived for thousands of years raising children. We have never had a time where the life expectancy of infants has been as high as it is today. So some of this actually makes sense. You have to do what's necessary to protect the food supply, because that can lead to other health issues later on. But we have been doing this for thousands of years. So why can't we come up with a way where everybody is in control to some degree of the food supply that they are providing to their infants, even if we have to provide it in a way that can be made sterile by a plurality of providers instead of just by a select few who happen to jump through the legal requirements for liability mitigation and have lobbied the government so that they have the ability to produce this stuff in a laboratory environment. Something needs to be done, because when one company like Abbott, when one of their production facilities went down because of Cronobacter and other internal issues, it went down something like 50% of the market was unavailable to families across the nation. So that really is my problem. But this is a PSA. So go over to, follow the link through ohmTown over to the Hill, or just do a search for Gerber Good Start Soothe Pro, and you will pull up this recall. because it says the instant formula was sold to retailers across the U.S. Anyone who purchased the following units after March 5th should look for lot codes and use by dates on the bottom of the package. Be sure to put the lid back on. Here they are. I can't read them all, but they're on the screen. They'll be in the video. You can come and check them out, and be safe out there. Let's move on to the next article, unless you have something that you want to add.
No, I don't have anything to add. I think we've seen each major manufacturer, at least in the US, face this problem. So I'm anxious to see more manufacturers come online so that if something happens, there's less of an impact to the overall supply.
Yeah, all you entrepreneurs over there out in the world that might be hearing this, I urge you to apply for a grant. The federal government is, I'm sure, chomping at the bit to support entrepreneurs who might want to provide a competitive advantage in this area, lower the cost, increase the quality control. If you follow the rules and regulations, I'm sure that you can probably get a subsidy from the federal government. Small business awards are to the tune of millions of dollars. It's not just $5,000, folks. Small business set-asides for government contracting and for grants are in the millions of dollars. So don't be shy about putting your expertise or desire to provide competition in this sector. Don't set it aside. Live your dream. So the final article for tonight is a New Mexico organization is hiring a professional bear hugger. Here's how to land your dream job. This is from the New Mexico legislature. Emily Rella, or Rhea, I'm not sure how they pronounce their last name, put this article together over at entrepreneur.com. And it says the American black bear was selected as the state's official animal on February 8th, 1963 by the New Mexico legislature. And now the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish is searching for people brave enough to spend their days cuddling the cubs, as this author puts it. I'll summarize. The expectation for these professional bear huggers are conservation officers. Pardon me one second. And the objective is to have you... Oh, really? Okay. Sorry. No, there's nothing. What is this? Where is that? Sorry, one second. That's pretty funny. Okay. Not a big deal. I don't have to worry about recording. Thanks. I didn't even see that. The AI just sent me a notice that one of my drives where I record this for backup apparently just ran out of space, which is rare for me. Anyway, the job listing is looking for professional bear huggers, aka conservation officers, who will be required to hike in strenuous conditions, have the courage to crawl into a bear den, and have the trust in your coworkers to keep you safe during the process. Apparently, it was a posting on Facebook and has received some reactions. How do you want to go hug bears in their den?
Should I want to? No. Do I want to? Yes. Would I? Probably no. It sounds a little dangerous.
And for those of you who do have the courage, you have to apply by March 30th. And there's a link in this entrepreneur.com article. Thanks for the heads up, AI. Yeah, just tell me next time. Those selected for the position will be put through the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish recruit training program and complete training through the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy. And there's also a physical fitness test. So I'm out. Megawatt is nothing more than a bunch of electrons in extra large clothing. Other duties for the job include educating the public about the wildlife in the area, participating in research, helping capture problem animals like Megawatt, and
Or
investigating.
angry mother bears.
Oh, yeah. Um, I think technically that they're referred to as Karens. I'm not quite sure, but and investigating. It says investigating damages, which is weird. Weird turn of phrase there. Among other responsibilities, so even a bear hugger gets other duties as assigned. Terminology in their job description. How long was that
Well,
there?
and I wonder, does that have to do with other animals or is that only bear related other duties? I don't
You
know.
get to hug other animals. So there we are, back to the front door of, well, the welcome sign of ohmTown. And every time you mash that, you should get a whole bunch of new news. There's a Snopes article down here. What does it say? Did Rand Paul delete a tweet showing him with a student wearing a Guns and 69 shirt? Man, sometimes you just don't want to scroll. Anyway, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. Sorry about the if there was an error message. I don't know if there was one. But at any rate, I won't worry about it now. We're all done. Have anything else you want to add?
No, nothing else.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming, and see you over on twitch.tv/ohmTown or youtube.com/ohmTown, or catching it as a pod wherever your podcatcher can catch pods. I just like saying that. You want to say bye to all of the citizens of ohmTown?
Sure. Good night, ohmTown citizens. And be sure to follow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye bye.